Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S6, 6 to 13, Return to Ithaca. Tales from the Odyssey. Chapter 1, Separation and Sorrow. Beneath an olive tree on a strange shore lay Odysseus, the lost king of Ithaca. In the weeks before, Odysseus had fought for his life against a terrible storm. He had lived many days without food or fresh water. He had narrowly escaped death with the aid of a sea goddess, and now, covered by a blanket of leaves, he was drifting into a deep and exhausted sleep. For the 20 years since he had left the battlefield of Troy, Odysseus had tried desperately to return to his beloved island of Ithaca. In that time, he had braved many storms and fought many monsters. He had lost his fleet of 12 ships and all of his men. Odysseus ached always to return to his home and be reunited with his wife Penelope and their son Telemachus. Though he had not seen them in 20 years, they were ever in his heart and mind. But as he lay on this distant shore, it seemed impossible to Odysseus that he would ever get home. As Odysseus slept on the beach, far away, Penelope slept in her palace bed, weary from weeping. For many years, wicked men had invaded her husband's estate, demanding that she take one of them for a husband. Penelope had steadfastly refused, and now her suitors were plotting to kill her son as he returned home from searching for his father. Upon hearing this news, Penelope had collapsed. She could hardly bear her husband's absence. Surely she would die if she lost her son as well. Far away from Ithaca, Penelope's son Telemachus lay in a splendid chamber in the palace of the king and queen of Sparta. He had traveled there to find news of his father, and his quest had been fulfilled. King Menelaus had told him that Odysseus might be a captive on the island of the goddess Calypso. Since receiving this news, Telemachus had been asking himself the same questions over and over. Should he set out in search of Calypso's island in hopes of finding his father, or should he return to Ithaca and help his mother in her struggle against the suitors who were trying to take his father's place? The son of Odysseus did not know that even now evil men were waiting to ambush him on his way home. High on Mount Olympus, the gray-eyed goddess Athena looked down on Odysseus, Penelope, and Telemachus. Something must be done to save Odysseus and his wife and son, she thought, and quickly. So in the hour before dawn, Athena left the bright, perfect world in the clouds and slipped down to the small and troubled world below. Chapter 2, The Princess. Athena traveled swiftly over the earth to the land of King Alcinous. King Alcinous was a wise and generous leader, and his kingdom was blessed. The men were the best sailors in all the world, and the women were the best weavers. Athena passed green fields, splendid temples, and lovely houses until finally she came to the palace of the king and queen. In the hour before dawn, she slipped through the entranceway and down the hall to the chamber of the king's daughter. Nausicaa, the goddess, glided silently into the princess's room. Like a breath of wind, she swept past two young handmaidens sleeping near the door. Athena hovered for a moment over the princess's bed. Then she quickly changed her shape to that of Nausicaa's closest friend. She spoke to the princess as if in a dream. Nausicaa, you're so lazy, she said. Don't you know that there are many dirty clothes in the palace that must be washed? How will you ever marry if you do not have a clean gown? At dawn, you must load the best linen into a wagon and go to the pools near the shore and do the washing. The gray-eyed goddess then slipped out of the palace as swiftly and silently as she had come. When dawn broke, Nausicaa woke and remembered her strange dream. She hurried at once to her parents' chamber. "Father, I must go today and wash all our best clothes in the sea," she said. "If I don't have clean clothes, how will I ever marry?" King Elsinore smiled. He thought his daughter's words were strange, but he could refuse her nothing. "If that is what you wish, Nausicaa, that is what you shall do," he said. "I will tell the servants to fetch a wagon and harness the mules so you can carry all our clothes down to the sea." The king's servants quickly prepared the wagon. The princess and her handmaidens loaded piles of soiled cloaks, robes, tunics, and gowns into the back. They packed a lunch of bread and meat, a goatskin filled with wine, and a flask of golden olive oil. Nausicaa climbed into the driver's seat of the wagon and snapped the reins. The team of mules lunged forward, and the wagon rattled noisily over the road, carrying the princess and handmaidens toward the sea. When they came to the washing pool near the shore, the girls unhitched the mules. They unloaded the wagon and carried the piles of clothes down to the pools. They stamped on the garments, washing them in sea water until they were spotless. Then they spread them over the rocks to dry. As they waited for the sun and wind to dry their laundry, the princess and her handmaidens bathed in the sea. They ate the bread and meat. Then they threw off their veils and began playing ball. The princess tossed the ball high into the air. A maiden missed a catch. The ball rolled into the water. As the girls ran to get it, they laughed and shouted not far away. A sad and weary man lay beneath a blanket of leaves under an olive tree. When he heard the voices of the young girls, he opened his eyes. "Where am I?" he wondered. "Who is shouting and laughing?" The voices sound like those of a nymph who hunt rivers and mountains. Odysseus broke off a bough of thick leaves to hide his nakedness. Then he crept out from under the olive tree into the afternoon sun. Chapter 3. The Stranger. When the handmaiden saw Odysseus, they screamed and ran away, but Princess Nausicaa stood very still, for Athena had filled her with courage. The young girl stared at the unkempt stranger, covered with sea salt and dirt and leaves. "Beautiful princess, are you a goddess or a mortal?" Odysseus said. "Whoever you are, have pity on me, for I have suffered much. I was tossed upon the seas for 20 days, until the waves flung me onto this shore. Can you give me clothes to hide my nakedness? Can you tell me the way to your town?" The princess drew close to Odysseus. "Stranger, I believe you are a good man," she said. "I'm Nausicaa, the daughter of King Alcinous. My maid and I will help you." Nausicaa called for her handmaidens to come out of their hiding places. She ordered them to bring clean clothes and olive oil for the mysterious stranger. Odysseus washed himself in a stream, then rubbed the olive oil over his battered, sun-dried skin. When he had dressed himself in a tunic and cloak, the princess's handmaidens brought him meat and wine. After Odysseus finished his meal, Princess Nausicaa told him what he must do. "You may follow our wagon to the walls of the town, but when we get inside the walls, you must leave us. The men of my land are the finest sailors in the world, but they are suspicious of strangers. They may think you are the vagabond from some foreign ship and speak ill of me for leading you to our city." "Where should I go?" asked Odysseus. "Inside the walls of the city there is a grove of poplars sacred to Athena. Wait there until I have had time to get home," said Nausicaa. "Then come to the palace. Inside you will find my parents sitting before a fire. My mother will be spinning dark blue wool. Kneel before her and ask for help." The princess then shook the reins of her wagon, and the mules began clattering toward town. Odysseus followed the wagon past fields and farmland and a harbor filled with fine ships. When the wagon arrived at the narrow gates of the city, Odysseus followed it through the gates, then stopped and watched it rattle on without him. Odysseus walked quickly through a marketplace filled with merchants selling fish, sails, and ship's oars. As he made his way between the stalls, several of the merchants and customers eyed him suspiciously. Odysseus quickly slipped past them and into the sacred grove of poplar trees. He hid among the trees, waiting for the princess to reach the palace. While he waited, Odysseus prayed to the gods, "Hear me, O god of Olympus, have pity on me." He begged, "Grant that I may make my way safely to the palace and find favor with the king and queen." Odysseus remained hidden in the olive grove until he was sure Princess Nashka had had enough time to reach the palace. Then he stepped cautiously out onto the city streets again. As Odysseus started out of the grove, a strange mist covered his body. No one seemed to notice him as he made his way through the street. Has Athena made me invisible? He wondered. Suddenly, a small girl stepped in front of Odysseus. The child stared up at him with bright gray eyes. Odysseus wondered if the girl might be Athena in disguise. "Can you tell me the way to the palace of the king?" he asked her. "I'll show you," said the child. "Follow me and speak to no one." Odysseus followed the girl through the street. When they drew near the palace, she said simply, "Go inside and look for the queen." Then she disappeared, leaving Odysseus alone at the palace gate. Odysseus entered the gate and passed through an orchard of trees, laden with luscious figs, pears, and apples. He walked through a rich vineyard and a bountiful flower garden. When he entered the halls of the palace, he gasped in wonder. The palace shone with a splendor like that of the sun and moon. Golden statues of boys holding fiery torches lit the halls. In the gleaming light, handmaidens worked at the looms. Their fingers fluttered like aspen leaves in the wind as they wove the beautiful linen. No one seemed to notice Odysseus as he walked through the palace, hidden by Athena's cloak of mist. He slipped silently into the great hall. As Odysseus looked about for the queen, he saw a group of nobles sitting near an open fire. Nearby sat the king and a woman spinning wool. Odysseus moved quickly toward Nashka's mother. As he knelt in the ashes before the hearth, he felt the mist around him evaporate, and suddenly he was visible again. Some in the hall cried out in alarm when they saw the haggard man. But Odysseus spoke quickly and passionately to the queen. "I humbly beg you to have pity on me. I have come here from beyond the sea. Help me find my way back to my home country, to my wife and my son." Chapter 4. The Feast. Everyone in the great hall stared in shock at Odysseus as he knelt before the queen. Finally, an old man broke the silence. "We must honor our most ancient tradition. Almighty Jews tell us never to deny a stranger who asks for our protection. Give this wretched man a chair, offer him wine and supper." King Alcinous helped Odysseus to a chair. A servant brought a silver basin and washed Odysseus' hands. Others brought him bread and meat and wine. The king and queen and all the guests raised their cups in the air. "To Zeus, protector of worthy strangers," said the king. Then he looked at Odysseus. "Perhaps you are one of the immortals yourself. Come down to earth to test our hospitality." Odysseus shook his head. "Pray, sir, do not mistake me for a god. In truth, I am the most wretched of men. If only you knew what misery I have suffered." King Alcinous seemed moved by Odysseus' humble words. He turned to his guests. "Go safely to your homes now. Tomorrow we will honor this traveler with a feast." When the guests had all taken their leave and Odysseus was left alone with the king and queen, the queen spoke gently to him. "I see that you do not wear your own clothes, my friend, for those are garments that my daughter took to the washing poles this morning. You say that you have come from beyond the sea. In truth, who are you? Where is your home? Odysseus did not want to reveal his true identity, so he told them only of leaving the island of Calypso and escaping a terrible storm. He told them about their daughter's kindness toward him. Satisfied with his story, the queen ordered her servant to prepare a room for Odysseus. He was just led to his bed, where he lay down on a soft purple blanket. As soon as the torches were put out, he fell into a deep, restful sleep. The next morning, palace servants set about preparing a great feast. They roasted sheep, boared and oxen. A messenger was sent to summon the finest singer in the land, a blind minstrel. As King Alcinous's servants made preparations for the feast, Athena walked through the streets of the city. Disguised as the king's herald, she called to every citizen, "Come, lords and princes, come hear the stories of the stranger who has arrived at the palace of the king." Great crowd gathered at the palace for the feast. When King Alcinous brought Odysseus before his people, the crowd gasped. Odysseus could see great wonder in their faces. Though he was still weary from his ordeal at sea, he suspected Athena had made him look tall and strong and given him an air of great dignity. As the feasting began, the blind singer sat down by a pillar and cradled his harp in his arms. Soon the spirit moved him, and he began singing about famous warriors who had died in battle. He sang about the heroes of the Trojan War, about brave Achilles and King Agamemnon. As the singer sang, Odysseus wept for his lost friend. He hid his face behind his robe, so none could see his tears. He did not want them to guess who really was. But later, after sports and games, Odysseus felt merry and confident. He called out to the singer, "Sing about the wooden horse that helped the Greeks win the war. If you tell the true story of the fall of Troy, I will praise your storytelling the whole world over." The singer began singing about a Greek king named Odysseus. He sang about how Odysseus had ordered the making of a giant wooden horse, and how he had hidden himself inside the horse with his finest warriors. He sang about how the Trojans had brought the horse inside the walls of Troy, and how the Greeks, led by Odysseus, had crept out at nightfall, laid siege to the city, and thus won the war. As the minstrel sang, Odysseus began to weep again. This time he could not hide his grief. He wept uncontrollably. King Alcinous ordered the singer to silence his harp. "Our guest has wept twice today when you sang about the Trojan War. I imagine your songs have stirred his memories." Then the king turned to Odysseus. "Sir, do not try to hide what you feel or who you are any longer. Tell us your name. Tell us about your troubles and what you have seen. Did you see the fall of Troy? Did your friends perish in battle? I ask you to tell us your story." Chapter 5. The end.